Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is
Tobias.
Tobias. How's your weekend?
Hello. What?
How was your weekend?
Good. I'm shouting for no reason. My weekend was great. I had a good time. My friends came over. We played some tabletop role playing games. Then I went out to eat with my wife, Emily, obviously, and then we met up with her brother and his girlfriend, and actually we went to a pretty interesting place that you would probably enjoy. So if you ever find yourself here, we'll definitely go there. It's called Second Salem Brewing, and it's in Whitewater, which is a little town. It's a little college town, about 45 minutes from us, and it's all like monster themed. So they've
Oh,
got like they have a little brewery there, and they make like a Beast of Bray Road ale and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's fun. I don't know. I had dinner there, and that's about all the really exciting stuff that I have to report. But how was your weekend?
it was good. It was I don't know if you're doing the thing, but it was Joe Bob night, Friday night.
I haven't had time. See, I find myself having to catch up,
Yeah.
so I'll have time to watch it like on a Sunday in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's
Is basically where I'm at,
well,
unfortunately.
they're doing it weird. So now it's not, how they used to run the season and it'd be every Friday night of that season and then they ran two movies. They're not doing that now.
Right.
It's every other Friday and it's only one movie. And I don't know that I like that, but I guess I don't make the rules. I mean, what they're saying is that you get to watch more movies this way and it kind of extends the last drive-in season because it's going to go on for the summer, right?
Right.
Which is neat, but I forget. I'm like, is it Joe Bob Friday? Do I need to be prepared? But I did not forget this Friday, and I got to catch it. I'm glad I did because it was the Toxic Avenger.
Oh, no shit.
Yes,
I watched that not that long ago.
yeah, and for the first time or just recent.
Oh,
You just
like for
watched it
the
recently.
millionth time.
Oh, okay. I was like, wow, really
Yeah.
you?
No, I grew up
Um,
on Trauma. Like
yeah,
yeah, hell
yeah,
yeah, fucking Toxic Avenger,
yeah.
Class and Newcomb High, Trauma's War, Tromeo and Juliet,
Oh
like
yeah,
all of that shit.
yeah,
Terror Firmer, that's a good one.
yeah. I'm a
Surf
big
Nazis Must Die. Okay, I'll stop.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
But
My
there's a
my
lot.
personal recommendation to everybody is always Video Vixens.
Video
Check that out.
Vixens,
Yeah,
nice.
check
Rabid
that
Grannies.
out. But yeah, of course they showed classic Trauma, and of course Lloyd Kaufman came on. Of course he did,
Oh, that's great.
which is probably like one of the most pure human beings on the planet, right? Just a fucking fantastic person. And yeah, it was fun. It's always fun to watch a classic, especially when you feel like you're with a group of people. I mean, that's the thing about the last drive-in, right? You watch it with everybody on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, and you feel like you're watching it with people. Anyway, so I told a story about a story that Lloyd Kaufman told me, and I'll never forget it. So I saw Lloyd Kaufman at Horror Hound in Sharonville, Ohio, in recent years, and of course we started talking about what I do for a living, and he's like, "Well, I want to tell you, I saw a ghost one time." I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Well," he said, "Not really." He said, "Maybe I didn't see a ghost." He said, "I was staying in a hotel, and it was like clearly haunted." He was telling me about like the doors moving on their own. The phone rang, and he answered. There was nobody there, and I mean, he's really selling the story. And then he goes, "But I was really drunk, so." that was
That'll do it.
that was Lloyd Kaufman's ghost encounter, and it's probably my favorite, and of course my favorite Lloyd Kaufman story. But I bring that up because if you want to be like Lloyd Kaufman, you can actually do that, and you can come on the brand new show that just came out this week, Fringes of Reality, which is a sister show to On Wednesdays We Talk Weird. People come on, they share their stories, and then we share it with the rest of you guys, and you should listen to it. But I'm not pitching my own show. If you're here, you already probably know it's out. I just wanted to mention that I made a hard decision. I made a hard decision. So this particular episode, the audio quality on it wasn't great, and so I had to do some editing. And sometimes when you're editing audio, well, I'm not as good as some people that might be listening, but um, you have to do things you're not proud of. And I had to like pull the volume like all the way down on the episode. But the issue with doing that and running a show that's monetized like this one is that when the ads come on, they fucking blare into your headphones. So the hard decision that I made, I had to monetize that episode. That's crazy, right? Isn't that fucking weird? I don't know. It's because I just feel like it's more important for people to hear these stories, and if you're not going to listen to it because the audio is off, and I don't want that to happen. I want you to be able to listen to it. So go listen to it. There's no ads on it.
Oh, I
Yeah,
was confused. So you demonetized
demonetize that
that
episode.
episode.
You're right.
Okay.
Just that
Well,
episode. You
good for
guys,
you.
yeah.
That's a
Sorry
nice
to get
thing to
ads
do.
here, but well, and I wasn't saying it to get like a pat on the back. But
It's too
we're
late.
thank you.
Yeah, you're getting one.
But we're human here. You know what I mean? Like, and like I said, I want people to be able to hear these episodes because honestly, what I found doing these episodes compared to like when you interview a witness, you know what I mean? That's obviously it's in private. They're given complete anonymity if they want it. At
Right.
least I've always offered it. This people are gonna hear it. They're putting themselves out there for the entire world to hear. And what I've been telling these people is that I'm not going to identify you so that way people can find you can identify yourself if you want to. But if you don't want people to know who you are, you can still have it. They don't want that. They want to come on and share their stories. And these people at the end of doing the shows, they're always like, man, that's so therapeutic. That was awesome. It feels good to, finally say this. It's a mix of some people who have maybe they have podcasts or maybe they've gone on and told their story somewhere else, but there are some people that have never done a podcast before. They've never told the story, in a public setting like this. So, definitely congratulate those people and take a couple moments and go listen to their experiences. So
Yeah.
there's that. But I feel like I did something else this weekend and I don't remember. Oh,
Must
it's
have
not
been pretty fun if you don't remember it.
I know, right? It was wild. It was a wild and weird weekend. I remember. It's not something that I did, it's something that I saw. Okay, so I get on social media and this is totally unrelated to anything, but god damn it, it's my show and I can talk about whatever I want. And I see this crazy new product going around. And the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh, it's AI, right? This is ridiculous. Funny, but whatever, move on. And then I see one of my personal friends post it. And I'm like, they're like, oh, I got this crazy new product. And I'm like, wait, that's real. The Charmin Forever roll. Have you seen this?
No, that seems like a bad idea,
Listen,
though.
listen. Google it. Go ahead and pull it up.
Oh,
It
I'm doing
is
it right now.
it's one giant fucking roll of toilet paper. It's ridiculous. Like it looks crazy. And I thought it was fake. And it's not. It's fucking real. And you can buy it. I can buy it.
What?
Why? Why do we need this?
I mean, do you want to meet the person who needs it?
I
Because
know
I
people who
don't.
bought it.
That's too big. That wouldn't even fit in most rollers. Like you see, like in the ad, or if you go to their website, they've got like a special roller for it. Like
Right.
you'd have to go out and buy a different roller. You couldn't use the one that's like inset in your wall. You got to go buy a special stand for it.
Like I just listen. I would love to be in the room, right? When they're like, what can we do to sell more toilet paper, right? People don't care about the shitting bears that love to wipe their ass anymore. What do we need? We need something new. And somebody goes, just make a fucking big ass roll. It's whatever. And they go,
Yeah.
yes, let's do that.
It's like the Cadillac of toilet paper rolls.
I mean, really? And how long do you think this is gonna last? I mean, not just the roll itself. Obviously,
Forever.
it's it's not infinite. Um, But I mean, this has got to be this is a gimmick, right? Like they're not fucking serious. It's like when IHOP changed their name to IHOB or whatever. Like that didn't, obviously it was kind of silly, right? But do you think this
Sure.
is gonna like go on? I mean, this is a permanent product on their. I
I
guess it
have
could.
absolutely no idea. I would imagine fiscally that there's almost no chance because there's no way this is going to be popular enough to warrant them continuing to make it. Because again, like you can't put it where you normally would put your toilet paper roll. And
Right.
I'm not buying a special fucking stand just for you, Charmin. Sorry. Get fucked. Like that's not going to happen. So
They couldn't even like put a bear or anything on the top of the stand, like make it
they should have made a stand out of a bear.
out of a bear. Yeah,
Yeah, and
a
it's like
bear
hold
skin
if it had
stand.
its arm out and then its other hand like arm was folded in front of it with a towel and it wore a little suit like a butler, I'd consider buying it.
It's like an actual taxidermied bear cub.
Yeah, it has to be.
Then maybe we'll buy your rolls. But like I said, people are buying them. It was so fucking ridiculous. I had to talk about it somewhere. So
No, I mean, sure, it is weird fucking enough where I think it's fine to mention it.
I'm glad that I'm not. Yeah, I'm not the only one that thinks it's fucking weird. So I don't know. Did you buy the Sherman Forever roll? Is it lasting you? I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't really want to know. Uh,
Right, like you're going down a dangerous road here.
Imagine going to somebody's house and that's what they have. And
I
you're
have
like, fucking.
I don't even know if I could hold my tongue. I'd have to be like, "Did you buy this stand special for the forever roll? Is
I would
that
like
how
call them
committed
in
you
there.
are to the idea of infinite toilet paper?"
No, I would be like, you need to come in here right now and explain this.
Or you just drag them by their collar into the bathroom,
Pants down and everything. Like, what the fuck?
just waddling them in there. Yeah.
What is this? Listen, I love a gimmick. I'm hip to the trends. I understand. At least I like to think I am. This is too much, you guys. So anyway, that's all I have to say about the Charmin Forever rule.
Okay.
Um, so I spent some time looking that up this weekend. I haven't physically seen it with my own eyes, but it's real. So you don't have to be afraid of it. I think it's not sentient. We'll see what happens.
If I see one in the wild, I'm shooting it
Yeah.
just in case.
I think that's a good idea. So I did that. I did a show not too long ago. It's called Exploring the Unknown. It just came out. You guys can go check that out. They're a new podcast, so go give them a listen. Lots of things for you to listen to and watch because, of course, you got to watch Trauma now that we've talked about it. That is just the thing here on this show. Yeah, that's it really. I mean, as far as my leisurely time goes, I do have some news. Some
Oh boy,
news to
news.
discuss.
I have one news,
One news.
but I will wait. You should go with your news first.
I have two news. This one they're not really official newses, but they're newses. I came across a winged humanoid sighting on Reddit of all places, which
Okay.
it's Reddit. But I have talked to this person since this has happened.
Then it
So they
counts.
exactly. So they had posted to the Humanoid Encounters subreddit, and said that this happened in Wisconsin around 2014. He did actually give me the pretty much the exact location of where it happened. Um, he said basically it was twilight, almost evening, and so the trees were all black against the dark blue sky. I simply happened to glance up at the top of one of the trees as I was driving, and what I originally thought was the top of the tree flew up into the air at lightning speed and disappeared. It looked like a humanoid thing with wings, but it was so fast I could barely make out anything else, but it definitely had legs and wings. He says it
Hmm.
just lifted up. The figure with wings that I thought was the top of the tree just flew up and disappeared lightning fast. I've never seen anything fly that fast. It was like a blink. So there's a little bit more details in it, not much. Just, oh, if am I crazy? Did I imagine it? Blah blah blah.
Sure. All the normal stuff. Where was it?
It
In
was.
Wisconsin.
Let me go back to the messages here. 1 second. While I Let me just keep talking while I look this up.
Just very natural segue
No,
into
no.
locating the
Here we go.
information.
So what I'll say here, not too far from West Salem.
Okay.
So if
Interesting.
that means anything to you, I don't fucking know.
Right.
Um, but in talking with him, I'll tell you, he didn't want to use the term Mothman.
No.
Of course, other Redditors had commented and mentioned Mothman. I just said, hey, I'd like to ask you some questions about this. And, and speaking with him, like I said, he didn't really, to him, he thought, his word that he used was maybe something demonic. He's a Christian man.
Uh-huh.
That was the first thing that came to his mind. I did ask about other things that may have happened either before or after, just anything at all that might be related to this. He said it's probably not related at all. But then he goes on to tell me a story about how when he was a kid, he saw some strange orange orbs off in the woods,
Hmm.
and which is
Same area?
interesting. Yes, same area. He said it just kind of looked like kind of the ravers with the poi balls, that light up and they're being flung around. It looked like that.
Huh.
But he was like, yeah, it's but you're probably not interested in that, is what he said. Which just kind of tells me he himself is really not familiar with this stuff because I definitely am interested in that.
Right.
And we're still kind of mid conversation, just kind of talking about different things. But I am in talks with the guy, so he had no idea. He had no clue that this was a whole thing that was, or, he claims had no clue this was a whole thing happening in that little area of the world. So,
Interesting. Yeah. West Salem is on the opposite side of the state where I would expect to get that kind of report.
hmm yeah,
So that in and of itself is fascinating to me. It doesn't make it like incredible, I think
sure,
that that if the person otherwise seems like they're relating their experience like authentically, then like this could be a very credible sighting. Um, if anything, it could make it more credible, because you get a lot of just obviously fake ass bullshit from like the Milwaukee area, um, and so this isn't that, which is nice.
sure, absolutely. I asked them, I'm like, why did you, 10 years later, why are you posting this on Reddit out of nowhere? And he was just like, why? I just kind of thought about it. Just kind of thought about it one day and post. He said he had posted it to a different subreddit, but then people had told him to post it there, and he did. And so we haven't talked on the phone. I'd like to, formally interview him, but it just hasn't gotten to that point because this literally just happened.
Right.
So it hasn't gotten to that point yet. What are the earliest recorded, reported, I should say, sightings in that area? Do you know?
Um, in the state of Wisconsin or around Lake Michigan or like
Um,
the Great Lakes region.
yeah, I'd say just that the chunk of that area.
Well, I've got one from 1957,
Oh, okay.
which was in Braidwood, Illinois, which is some distance south of Chicago. Um, and then in Wisconsin, I mean, they probably go back, I don't know, 10, 15, maybe 20 years.
Okay. I wasn't sure of what that looks like, so I just wondered because this was 2014, so it predates Chicago Mothman, but not really if it's the same thing. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying. You understand what I'm
it
saying,
predates all of the hoopla. Sure, like all of the sensationalist stuff that kicked off in 2017.
right?
Yeah, you know.
So that is my one news, my first news.
Okay, that's one news, everybody.
Definitely
Mark
got
it.
one news. Yep, mark it off the list there. My other news is about Matt Moneymaker.
Okay.
You know who Matt Moneymaker is,
I do. World famous Bigfoot expert, Matt
right?
Moneymaker, obviously.
You know, Matt Moneymaker. He is the is he the owner of the BFRO?
I think. I mean, he's definitely in charge as far as I
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I don't know if he's the owner or what the deal is. Matt Moneymaker, Bigfoot hunter, Bigfoot's expert. Yeah, there you go. Well, Matt Moneymaker made a very interesting post on social media this week, and it's kind of got a lot of people in a tizzy. Okay, people are upset with him.
Oh man.
Matt Moneymaker made a big old long post. I'm not going to read it out to you guys. Just go look him up and find it somewhere about Bigfoot and Bigfoot being accompanied by, well, guess what? Orbs. And he is basically saying that he is no longer going to ignore these reports. Um, you know, saying how cryptozoologists and specifically the Bigfoot bros of the cryptozoology world have long ignored these sightings, and I agree with that largely. They don't tend to include them, or they just write them off as didn't happen at all. But he is endorsing that these sightings probably do happen. We don't know why, and we would basically be doing a disservice if we didn't entertain the idea that there's a possibility here. And let me tell you, this is a hot button topic for the community. You've got this massive divide between cryptozoology and anything else, right? That it might be possibly anything else that's not natural, or I'm sorry, terrestrial, I guess is the best word for it. Flesh and blood, anything besides a flesh and blood animal. And man, people are real divided now. Because a lot of people see what Matt Moneymaker says is gospel. So, of course, they're disappointed that he feels this way. I don't
What a
know.
nerd fight.
It really is. It really is a nerd fight.
Fucking ridiculous. Okay, I guess this is my question. Like what's the concern here? So if Bigfoot turns out to be like an interdimensional shaman or whatever, so like would he not be classified as a cryptid at that point? Is that what people are all fucking bothered about?
I don't. I don't know. I don't know. I wish I understood. I think it's because. Okay, I think it's because Bigfoot is the most popular topics of all of these topics. I think we could say Bigfoot's probably rivals with like UFOs. You know what I mean?
Oh, easily.
These are like
Bigfoot's probably more popular than UFOs.
right. This is like vanilla. Okay. Anybody that gets into cryptozoology, they get into it because of Bigfoot. Like it's pretty rare you find somebody that's like, oh, I really love the I don't know, the fucking worm thing. What's it called?
Oh, the
The Mongolian death
Mongolian death
worm.
worm.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
They're not like,
that's why
oh
I got
yeah,
into this.
right.
Mongolian death worms and like the snallygaster.
Yes, there you go. It's because of Bigfoot. And I'm one of those people. I got into it because of Bigfoot. That's my story. It's a lot of our stories. And I think that the frustration comes in because some people get into it because they saw one. And it's easier to bite off and chew that this is an animal, an undiscovered animal, than it is to bite off and chew this is, well, I'll say what you said, an interdimensional shaman.
I would love that.
Or ghost of Neanderthal, or whatever the fuck it is people say,
That's fine, but not as fun as the shaman.
portal protectors, I fucking, I don't know,
Yeah,
invisible, whatever
I'd
it is
watch
that they
that
say.
show.
Portal protectors, hell yeah.
Fuck yeah, I would.
So people are, like I said, they're mad, they're really upset. And, I don't disagree with a lot of what Moneymaker does because, well, I mean, his fucking name suits him, right? Come on. I mean, we're not dumb. Um, I've listened to him talk about things, and I've listened to him claim to have this great evidence that, of course, he never releases to anybody ever for whatever legal reason he claims. I'm not buying what he's selling most of the time. But, I agree with him on this, you know, that it is a disservice for us to just totally disregard these sightings because, I mean, fucking at the end of the day, we just don't know. We can't prove anything one way or the other. And while I have my own theories about what I personally believe about these things, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm the Bigfoot expert I know because I don't fucking know.
Sure. If these people claim to be scientists or to be citizen scientists actively trying to approach this scientifically, then ignoring or dismissing data just because it is inconvenient to your
Right.
preconceived notions or hypotheses is not very good fucking science. And speaking of, I have seen a decent amount of the back and forth about what is a cryptid and what isn't a cryptid, and we have to define cryptids properly because they have to be this thing and not this other thing. I've seen so much of that on social media lately, and a point I never see anybody bring up, right? Okay, so like these people arguing, say for instance, that something has to be a uh, a natural animal, right? So no Flatwoods monster, no Kelly Hopkinsville goblins, no snallygasters
Sure.
can be cryptids. Okay, then just as a hypothetical, right? Like, do you think that they believe in the possibility of, say, parapsychological phenomena? You know,
Hmm.
telepathy or precognition, clairvoyance, any of that stuff. And the reason I ask is this. Okay, so humans are fucking animals, right? We absolutely are. You know, from a scientific standpoint, we are animals. Now, if you allow for the possibility of something like parapsychological phenomena, then does having telepathy make a human being no longer an animal? Are we no longer natural animals at that point? Where's the line? So if you allow for that, then why couldn't your house be haunted by the ghost of your dog? Why couldn't Bigfoot communicate telepathically? Why does it only have to be humans who are capable of this and still be considered natural fucking animals? Doesn't make sense. I don't think people have thought this all the way through.
So the way that I see it, because I'll die on that hill, I'll take it on. Let's do this. That's how I see it. You can't take your dog to a human doctor. You can't take him to a medical doctor. And you wouldn't yourself go to a veterinarian to seek medical care. If we want to be taken seriously as a science, we need to do a very good job at trying to categorize everything because science loves that shit. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't study all of these topics. It doesn't mean that you can't, draw ties between some of these, especially with things that we don't really understand what they are for sure. Um, you can look at Bigfoot and go, well, Bigfoot's a cryptid, and I think it's an alien, so therefore it's ufology. Well, why do I think it's ufology? Well, here's these sightings where Bigfoot was seen, and also there was a UFO in the vicinity, and then I got abducted, and I was on this other planet, and there was a Bigfoot there too. It can be both. It can be both of these things. But on paper, I personally think that it is very important that we try to differentiate these topics. It's petty. It is. I'll be the first one to tell you that. But like I said, I'll also be the one to die on the hill, on the petty hill. And it's just because that's the way that science works. It likes order, and it likes organization, and it's silly, but now we're kind of to the point to where we can kind of get the luxury of trying to like micromanage things a little bit better. But we all still need to be able to work together. I wish there was a better term for all of it. All of the strange phenomena. If there was just some term that we could use to kind of put all of it under one umbrella, man, that'd be so fantastic, wouldn't it?
Sure. Well,
We'd
I
have to
think my
think of
issue
something.
is that people are really putting the cart before the horse here. Like, yeah, I understand that classification is necessary, but it's very premature at this point to be attempting to classify things outside of anything other than folklore, which is what for the most part you could say comfortably. A lot of this is. Um, and so I guess what I would want to see then is, well, I would love for people to have a more progressive view of possibility, I suppose, because science is not a static thing, right? It's always
Sure.
evolving, and hopefully, anyway, it shouldn't be falling into dogma. There should be nothing dogmatic about the scientific process, and so we shouldn't be dismissing data or asking the facts to change to fit our opinion. We have to be changing our opinion to
Right.
fit the facts. And
Yeah.
so if at some point, let's say somebody studying parapsychology was able to provide definitive proof, just as a hypothetical, definitive proof of something like telepathy, then we would know that that's a possibility among natural animals. We would know that. And once we know that, then we have to expand our definition of what a natural animal is, what it's what it's possible to be, what it's capable of, right? And I think there's just so much unknown. And I think that one of the things that people really suffer from, and it's not just cryptozoology, it's parapsychology, it is ufology, it's
Yeah.
fucking all of it. People suffer from needing progress. They fucking need it. They need to feel like we know more now than we did in the 60s or the
Yeah.
40s or whatever, right? But we don't really,
Don't,
you know,
yeah.
like not by that much. And so they've got this idea. They built up this idea in their head that we know certain things at this point, and so that shows progress, and it's something to build on. But we fucking don't.
Yeah.
And we haven't made that progress, and we don't have this extra stuff to build on. I think a lot of that is just wishful thinking. And so I don't know, like one of the things I always try to do is I start from the beginning, you know, every time I look into a subject. Like I don't want 60 years of wishful thinking and people trying to sell their personal fucking theories to inform where we go from here, because if they're already headed in the wrong direction, then we're just going to get more lost, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So it's
think that
frustrating.
my big takeaway from it all is that here's the thing. You've got people who are fucking damn good at Bigfoot. Okay. They could sit down
Hmm.
in a room with me and they could fucking school me and I don't know half the shit they're talking about. And then you'll have people who are damn good at parapsychology, right? They have done the dirty work. They've looked in all the government files and they've looked at all these tests and like that's what they're good at. You need those two people to come together and work together at the end of the day. Like you
Sure.
and you need both of those people to be able to not of course I don't want to say expert because people hate that and I get why. But you need those people to bring their expertise and their respective subjects to the table and be able to have a conversation.
Right.
And we are seeing with this Matt Moneymaker statement that we're still far away from that. And that's very unfortunate
Agreed.
because we're not going to get anywhere.
No, I totally agree with that. I think that's a great point.
We are at a fucking stalemate at the moment. Not, I mean, and not obviously not across the board, not everybody, right?
Sure.
Like there's clearly people that are open minded in this community that are willing to have those conversations and they're willing to have their mind changed. And I know I enjoy it. Teach me something I don't know, please change my mind. Um, but not everybody feels that way, and that just comes down to ego. I mean, really, at the end of the day, it's what it is.
Right.
And we need to shed that. We need to get rid of that if we really want to make any type of advances here. And so I hope Matt Moneymaker of all people sheds that ego and is able to make progress. In Bigfoot research because he's willing to look at it from a different perspective, or at least, people have been saying for a long time that he does endorse these topics. He just never has publicly, and that's probably true. And this is why he hasn't. you know? So let's not do that. As much as like I'm not best friends with the guy, I'm sure he's a fantastic person personally. I don't know. There's some things he does I don't agree with. At the end of the day, he is probably one of the largest figureheads in the Bigfoot community. So I'm not going to shit on him. And I hope he continues to do well because I'd like to die and Bigfoot's real. I'd like that to happen.
Right.
So, we'll see. But I don't know. Tobias, what do you think Bigfoot is?
I have no idea. Um,
Yeah.
I know that's my answer to fucking everything. It's like I don't know. Like if I knew, like if anybody knew, it would just be taught in school, and I wouldn't be doing this. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting reports surrounding Bigfoot specifically that have been ignored, and I think that is a shame. Like I have personally spoken to witnesses who have talked about some fantastic experiences that they have had with paranormal or parapsychological phenomena, um, but also Bigfoot, and that's their experience. And the only thing that I know for sure is that people continue to experience things that they can't explain, and that is more than enough to keep me going. But in terms of what Bigfoot actually is, I guess like I'm pretty fond of saying I am much more comfortable talking about what I think something isn't than what I think it is.
Sure.
And so at this point, I get less and less comfortable all the time with the idea that Bigfoot is a mundane biological species in the sense of some kind of great ape or primate, right?
Mm.
Because I mean, let's face it. And I know people don't like to hear this, and there's a million fucking excuses. We should have more. If that was the fucking case, we should have way fucking more than we do, more than the nothing, you know. Um, and so, like, that is something that I struggle with. And I'm not saying it's impossible. Obviously, I don't know. It is, I know that it is impossible to prove a negative. So I can't prove that that's not true,
Sure.
especially in the absence of any evidence that would definitively point to any other possibility. But it just seems less and less likely all the time, you know?
Yeah, I am pretty I'm a flesh and blooder. I think that these things are just an undiscovered species of ape. Um I think that they're not as large as people say they are. That's one thing about them. We know we've measured the Patterson Gimlin film. We roughly know how tall Patty was, and
Uh,
she really wasn't that tall. She was like between like tops 6'7" to like 7'4", and that's not 15 feet like some people claim.
right.
People are just really bad at measuring shit, and especially when you see something like a fucking Bigfoot, like your world's kind of shaken up a little bit. um but then you've got, portal hopping and orbs and UFOs and all this other, poltergeist activity after they have their Bigfoots. What's the deal with that? I think that's a totally different thing. I don't think you're actually seeing Bigfoot. I think whatever it is that you are experiencing is presenting itself as Bigfoots. You want to talk about some woo? Let me give you some hot woo.
Sure.
Uh, I think that is a different phenomenon, and that's what I refer to it as, the phenomena. And that's a tougher subject. I think Bigfoot, the creature, the animal, migrates. That's why it's hard to find them. They have to move around, or they would eat the entire everything in the area they stay in. I think because they migrate, that's where that answers the question to interbreeding, right? They come along other Bigfoots. I don't know how, because we can't even find one, but they do because they're better than us and breed with them, and then go on to migrate more. That's what I think. But that can change. That can change. When I started
Sure.
doing this, I believed it was only an animal, and that was it.
Right. I mean, I've heard all of that stuff before. Like those are the things that people usually say when you express concern over why we don't have more physical evidence or a body or anything like that. Because you talk about people seeing Bigfoot in, Pennsylvania or Ohio or
Right.
something, right? And a migratory species should be easier to find, not more difficult. That doesn't make it easier for them to hide. That just means they're crossing more roadways and shit. Like we should have something. It's
To
very
visit things.
frustrating.
Sure. Nobody's hit one with a car yet, and until that happens, um,
They're the only species in America that somehow has managed to not get hit by a
who's
car.
never been
Or
hit by a car.
well, there
Yeah.
are others, like there are, I don't want to say real scientists because people will get mad, but there are real scientists
Sure.
who
Degreed
study like
scientist.
who study animal species
Yeah.
in these states too. And so if there was some hidden animal, there would be signs of predation.
Mhm.
They would notice the effect on existing animal species. Like nothing happens in a vacuum. So yeah, there's a lot of shit missing.
Yeah, and we have, like,
I don't
one
know.
degreed scientist in the whole community. One.
I know, right?
Jeff
There
Meldrum.
used to be
We don't
two,
know who he
but one of
is.
them passed away.
Yeah. You know, we need more of those, though, in the community.
Agreed.
This is not a knock, right? We need those people, and maybe that's where it's really, I mean, when you explain science to people, people don't. really understand what it takes. And that's why I said I think it would be a great idea to do an episode on like what happens if we discover Bigfoot? What's next? How can we get there? Because honestly, I tell people all the time, why don't we find these things? Well, you don't really have universities out on expedition trying to look for these things actively. There's no funding for it. No, nobody's putting in money to have this happen. And the only funding we've ever had towards any Bigfoot research has been privately funded. And you don't have a bunch of millionaires interested in Bigfoot. It just
That's
doesn't
true.
happen. Um, but we need those people. We need more of those people, and we need less Bigfoot bros that are on TV. Just say that,
Well,
unfortunately.
okay. Tell you what, best we can do. Nothing but Bigfoot bros on TV.
Nothing but Bigfoot bros,
Final
and,
offer.
and one Jeff Meldrum.
Yes, you get a scientist.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. Kids, go to college, right? That's
Right.
my God. If you are really interested in studying this stuff seriously, go to college. Go get a
Study
degree in something.
zoology. Yeah.
Right, get a degree in something in any of these topics, and then at least we need you on our side. So that's where we're at with it. um anyway, that's my news. That's what I got.
Nice. That was some solid newsing.
There's a lot of news. Yeah, there's a lot of newsing.
Well, I've got this is another winged humanoid sighting.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we're going back to Chicago, downtown Chicago, in fact. So this one was passed on to me from Lon Strickler over at Phantoms and Monsters. And so he messaged me a while ago to let me know that this witness had reached out to him and that he was going to try to contact him. But apparently, he got this report from somebody claiming to have been a security person in a building in downtown Chicago. This is circa 2021, and they said that at around 1:30 a.m. while on duty, so the building presumably is otherwise empty at that hour. They had just completed their usual rounds and had settled into the monitor room to review their footage, right? And so after about an hour, they decided to take a walk, because they gotta do their rounds every so often. And he's walking around, he's checking everything that you check in a building. I guess I've never worked security like that. And while he's doing that, when he gets back to the third floor, the elevator stopped suddenly, and then the doors opened, but nobody was there. So that was odd. And then to add to that strangeness, he noticed the corridor lights were flickering and started to get a little bit of a creepy feeling, right? So he gets back into the elevator, goes down to the ground floor. And when he reaches the ground floor, the elevator opens normally. There's no creepy flickering lights or anything, and he goes to the security room to continue watching these monitors. But as soon as he sits down, he catches a glimpse of something passing by one of the monitors that's situated outside of the security room. So at that point, he sees this thing, and he could have sworn that it had wings, but it was real fast, right? Just kind of zooms in front of this camera. So he gets up, opens the door, looks out, and he said he had this weird feeling that sort of came over him, like he could feel like that something was watching him, right? So he starts to get super nervous. He goes back into his little TV room, and he's reviewing footage again. And as he watched, he saw this empty hallway. So the hallway is supposed to be empty. So that's a good sign, right? But then he sees this hazy figure materialize suddenly, and he said it resembled a human form, but its edges shimmered and blurred, making it seem, and this is his word, dreamlike. He said that it then floated down the hallway. It didn't cast a shadow, and seemed, again, I'm going to quote, entirely devoid of substance. So while this is happening, he's just watching it. He's apparently his reaction was to monitor this activity. So that's what he did. And as it moved towards the front door, so it's kind of moving towards the entrance or exit to the building, right? And as that happens, he says the form, it kind of solidified, right? It became more defined. And so at that point, he gets up and he rushes out to, I don't know, confront it, see what the hell it was, whatever. And he walks into the hallway and he starts going towards the front. And as he turns this corner, he sees this 6 to 7 foot tall winged being that he said looked human like. He said it was very thin and dark in color. He described the wings as being almost transparent, as the light from the street could be seen through them. Uh, Estimated the wingspan at about 15 feet because the wings were unfurled, I guess. And yeah, he was so shocked. He said he dropped his flashlight. And at that point, the being turned and looked at him. And when it did, he noticed that its eyes were illuminated with a bright orange red color. And then, and this is the most interesting part, I think, in a flash of blue light, it was gone. So that's the important part of this story. I mean, obviously, he was shocked to see this, to say the least. Now, I talked to Lon about this because we have a lot of communication when it comes to stuff like this. And these messages, the report, and then further correspondence was received through encrypted text. And so that could mean a couple of things, right? It could mean that this person really wants to be anonymous. They're concerned about their reputation. They're afraid to speak up and speak out. And so they really wanted to just protect their privacy. Or it could be that it's somebody just totally making some shit up, somebody's creative fucking writing project, and they want to hide their identity because of that. I have no way of knowing. I can say that with the information provided to Lon, like we did locate a building in this area where the person said that the sighting took place that matches this particular report and could easily be the building that this was supposed to take place in. That's not the same as proving that any of it happened, of course. Like I would need the witnesses' full identity, and you'd want to verify their employment and stuff. And I get why a lot of people wouldn't want to do that, but this guy doesn't work there anymore either. So I would hope that in under normal circumstances, most people would be okay with that, or at least providing doesn't even have to be through that former employer. Like, if you had an old like ID badge or something that you kept, or shit, I don't know, a fucking picture at a company Christmas party or something.
Sure.
Like anything would be enough, really, for me to be intrigued, but we don't have that. But it is interesting to me because this is one of a growing number of sightings where either people have described the being suddenly vanishing, or perhaps even more interestingly, appearing indoors. Like, how unusual is that for a winged humanoid sighting? It happens more often than you would think, which to me is at all. Like you would
Right.
just never think that this would ever happen, but people do report it. Like this is one in sort of a string of indoor sightings. So I don't know, interesting stuff.
That is interesting. Wow. That is pretty neat. So you haven't nobody's talked to the guy directly yet.
No, I don't. I honestly, if he's only communicating through like encrypted text, chances are nobody ever will.
Sure. Sure. And that's honest. I mean,
Right?
I don't know. Of course I like the indoor sightings. I wonder why.
Yeah.
They're very interesting to me. But why not? Why not indoors? I don't think that you're seeing this thing on accident anyway. So who knows? Very interesting. Did he say where he worked at? Did he like name the building?
He
Probably
gave
not.
in. Well, he actually gave in address, and
Okay.
I can't say where it is because obviously he never gave permission for that, and
Sure.
he was very insistent in his communication that he wanted to be anonymous, and so anything that would give him away, or really honestly to a certain extent just draw unnecessary attention to a fucking actual business,
Sure.
is not great. But yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
I can message it to you privately. It's
Sure.
It's a building in downtown Chicago. So
Yeah, super weird. I mean, the ones like in Chicago proper are really interesting to me. Just because if this thing did crawl in through a window or something, let's just play pretend. Let's say it did. Why didn't other people see it? Nobody sleeps in Chicago.
yeah.
You know.
No, I don't know. I mean, the thing about the Chicago sightings, or the ones that really take place sort of within the city proper, are by far the least credible. Like by
Yeah.
far.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't spend as much time on them. I know they're the
Sure.
ones that people really want to talk about because Chicago's the third biggest city in the fucking country, right? Like it gets a
Right.
lot of attention. And so everybody wants to talk about Chicago Mothman, but the real credible sightings happen on the outskirts, in
Yeah.
the suburbs and towns and villages out on the edge of the metropolitan area, and then out further into more rural areas,
Yeah.
into southern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, past Gary or outside of Muncie over in Indiana or Muncie in Indiana, places where there aren't, where there just isn't that concentration of people.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what your logical brain does that, right? Well, okay, you've got one person stating they saw this thing in a very populated city and nobody else saw it. It's like watching TikTok videos.
Yeah,
Those go of UFOs specifically. You're like, oh, okay, you saw that, but nobody else did. Cool. But just like with anything, right? It would be unprofessional to completely write any of it off.
no, of
So
course, yeah.
it's very interesting. Very interesting. Two winged humanoids this week. Nice. That's a record so far on the show.
Oh man,
Maybe we'll get the three next week. I
yeah.
won't
Some
encourage anybody, but
right.
you know,
Without making anything up,
right.
send in your winged humanoid reports.
And we'll talk about them here. All right, let's get into this topic here. Mm.
Speaking of things that are made up, oh no, oh I just said that. Fuck.
You broke the ice. I appreciate that you did it. Now when people come for this show, I can be like, it was all Tobias. You
Yeah,
heard it
fuck
here,
that guy.
folks.
That guy sucks.
But he'll be back next week, so sorry. Um, I'm gonna ask you, Tobias, what's your history with black-eyed children? Do you have a history with them at all?
Well, like anybody interested in these strange subjects, it's something that certainly I have heard of. I've heard people talk about it. I have seen and heard Brian Bethel interviewed about
Mhm.
his original sighting experience that sort of kicked off the whole phenomenon. Um, and that piqued my curiosity, enough where more than once I've tried to track down some really credible sightings, and I'm for like a million at this
Sure.
point in trying to do that. Unfortunately, and that doesn't mean that there aren't any, but boy, are they fucking hard to find. So I like my history with this is shit. I don't know, frustration, I guess.
Have you gotten reports of black-eyed children?
No, I have. Well, yes and no, I guess.
Okay. I
I've
I
re-
agree with that answer.
yeah, like I've had one or two people reach out and say that maybe they had an experience they wanted to talk about, but it just like petered out before I ever actually got to talk to them. Like in at least one case, I was actively emailing with them to set up like a phone interview, and then I just never heard back from them again.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty common from my experience in
Right.
trying to reach these kinds of witnesses, and that's unusual. Like it's not that weird for people to like flake out on interviews, but it is weird that out of every other phenomenon that I have been contacted about, I mean, this is the only one where I've never actually got to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
It's literally the only one. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's you know, troubling.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I did have one person reach out to me, and I can't give a lot of details because I promised them that I would never make their story public. But I did have somebody that I spoke to who had an experience with something like this, but they they viewed it more through maybe the lens of ufology
Okay.
than than paranormal per se. Most people conflate paranormal with like supernatural. Supernatural is probably a better word. So,
Okay.
but yeah. So I don't. Have you received any credible Black Eyed Kids
Mm.
stuff?
No. Thank God. I'm not gonna say that. Listen, if you have a credible report, I'm a very safe person to talk to.
Oh hell yeah!
Again, I just told you guys how much I'd love for you to change my mind on things. Definitely report them. Um, but I've never really received one directly. Of course, I've seen claims, mostly social media, right? Well, it's all black eyed kids.
Right, like an anonymous person on Reddit or something.
Right. You can go on YouTube and search black eyed kids or black eyed children, whatever term you prefer, and you'll find many episodes of alleged encounters with these things. And, I can't just go, oh, well, there's all these people that say they see this thing, then that must be it. I also, much like you, I have to start at the beginning of a story. And so that's what I do. And that's what I do with the show, especially when we're looking into a topic. I'll admit, I've never really deep dived this topic before, mostly because I'm not really into like the supernatural side of stuff, and unless it's something I'm already researching and it crops up. I'm really not like into ghosts or paranormal or demons or anything like that. There are some subjects that do pique my interest, and I will look into. But this was one that was kind of like, that's interesting. But I never really deep dived until this week. And, full disclosure, keeping in mind, you guys, I have 1 week to research these topics. One, just one. And that's not a lot of time. But I do the best I can with the time that I'm given and the resources that I have. So again, I start at the beginning and I'll tell you what I have found. So originally, actually, the black eyed children were just known as the children until they knocked on my door, right? So that's where that started. It's my fault. I'm sorry. You're supposed to laugh at my joke. It's a good joke.
I chuckled.
Chuckled. It was good. It's damn good.
Sorry, I'm distracted because I my brain goes in like a thousand different fucking directions, right? At any given moment. And so I had thought of something that I wanted to bring up. And so I was actually in the middle of looking it up during your hilarious joke.
It was so
And
good.
so with my attention split, I managed only a chuckle. So I apologize. It deserved better.
If you want to leave a 1-star review because Tobias didn't laugh properly at my joke, you can. I would accept that. I'm
That's
just
fair.
kidding. Don't do that, please. That's But if you want to leave a 5-star review because that joke was solid, that's fine.
That's the way to do
It's
it,
the way you
honestly.
should always leave 5-star. Even if you're complaining, go leave a 5-star review and be like, "I hate
Yeah.
this. Thanks."
It's the only way we'll take it seriously.
Right. Exactly. I don't read the 1 stars. It just hurts my feelings, so I don't read them. No, really, a lot of the articles and stuff that I found about the black eyed children, a lot of the research that's already been taking place, every single time, all of them go, well, they've been around since this year, and the years vary. The 1950s, the 1980s, the 1700s, right? The black eyed children have always been around, basically. Um,
Right.
and then they all get into this Brian Bethel guy, and I don't really know too much about him. What he's a journalist? Is that his deal? It sounds like you know a lot more about the guy than I do.
I believe that he is a reporter out of Texas, or at least he was. I don't know how old he is now. Like
Yeah,
his Black Eyed Kids encounter happened back in the '90s, and so
right.
he was a working journalist at that time. So I don't know how the fuck old he is now. I hope he's still alive.
Yeah, and this one's kind of inconsistent too. And it's not just like inconsistent because you got different people writing the story and I'm reading them. It also seems to be his story kind of changes sometimes. So this guy Brian Bethel in 1996 has this weird encounter with some kids that he had come across. So he's sitting in his car one day outside of this movie theater, and two boys between the ages of 9 and 12 approach his car, and they are sad because they said that they left their money at home, that they want to go see a movie. Hey, mister, can you give us a ride? And he was absolutely going to do so. He's like, "Hell yeah, I'm a good Samaritan. Why not? I'm gonna give the. I'm a weird man. Let me give these weird kids a ride. It's not strange." And before the kids got into the car, he took a look at their eyes and noticed that they were he said coal black eyes is how he described them. And leading up to this, he kind of like just immediately right before kind of started having this like sense of dread and looks at the kids, sees their eyes, and goes, "Yeah, never mind." And goes to drive off. Well, while he's trying to drive off, the kids are like, they have become aggressive at this point. They are like beating on his car and trying to get in, and he doesn't fuck with any of that. He leaves the scene, and he makes mention that while he's driving away, he looks in his rearview mirror and the kids aren't there anymore. So that's the nuts and bolts of the story. He did say that the kids were relatively normal looking. I think one was a curly redheaded kid and the other one had like a bowl cut or something. It was pretty normal. And except for the fact that they were wearing weird, they were wearing like clothes that kind of obscure themselves and had these weird black eyes and became angry at him. Um, Now, what I found is that Brian Bethel posted this story online on a creepypasta forum, but that seems to also be inconsistent. Were you able to find out where he first told this story? Because I couldn't.
Near as I can tell, um, 1998.
Okay.
Uh, it was posted to, I don't know what the hell this site is. Hold on, I'm going to see if I can actually pull this up
Okay.
because I mean 1998 was still pretty early days for the internet, right?
Yeah. It
I
was, but
I
there were
think this
people.
No, there were. I mean, I was in AOL chat rooms at that time, I think. Um, and okay, I think that this was a like an old timey message board
Mhm.
is where he posted it, like to like an old paranormal message board. Because what I'm seeing is what ghost discuss at
Oh.
uh, at lido.com. Is that somebody's email? Maybe. No, okay. I am while old, not so old that I remember like internet fucking message boards and shit that people used to go on all the time because I was not old enough to use those. I would have been like a teenager at the oldest when those were a thing.
Mhm.
And so this was either like in email chain maybe with other paranormal investigators, because it's looking like from what I found, the oldest iteration of this that I could see was from Friday, January 16th, 1998, at 7:12:20. Yes, 7:12 and 25 seconds Pacific Standard Time, from Brian Bethel to ghost discuss at lido.com. That's got to be an email chain. So I think the first time that this ever was seen was through like just an old fashioned email chain where a bunch of people probably shared stories through like this giant email thread.
Yeah, I mean, from what I'm seeing, this was creepypasta was definitely a term, not a wildly used term. I mean, I know probably hyper focusing, especially after a conversation that we had earlier, but like if this was a some type of forum, some type of place for people to share creepypasta specifically, well, we know that those are made up. Like, we
True.
know that these are fictional stories placed online, meant to go viral, meant to be scary. So, to me, that I mean, that why wouldn't you go on, like, an actual paranormal board if this actually happened? Why would you choose to post it to fictional horror?
Well, I
Um,
think that this email chain, from what I understand, was comprised of people who were interested in the paranormal. So
okay,
it's not like a Slender Man situation or something necessarily.
okay. So it's not necessarily just made up stories.
Well, it's not it wasn't necessarily created in a place to make up those kinds of stories. Now, having read the original report written, by Bethel, it very much reads like somebody's creative writing
It
project.
does, yeah. It does. I agree
And
with that.
that could be because he's an actual writer. It's
Sure.
not everybody. It's not fair, I guess, to ask people to make their writing less interesting, to make it more credible, or something. But and we shouldn't punish people, I guess, for
For being
having a
good
degree in
writers.
journalism or fucking English or
Right.
whatever. But yeah, it does. Like if I just got this from some random person, I would think, okay, well, you're obviously, just having a laugh. And part of that too is because the lighthearted way in which it is written. Um, Look, I've had crazy fucking shit happen to me, like weird fucking paranormal stuff, right? And when I write about it, it's not. And I know everybody reacts to things differently, but when I write about it, I'm not having as much fun as he seems to be having in this report,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I understand. I say several times when when I go on other shows or talking about I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not trying to start a cult. And I know it sounds that way, but like I mean, I don't know why I say that, I guess, because that's what it sounds like.
Right. Well,
It sounds like I'm pitching a cult. Um, you say stuff like that. I swear this happened. I'm not crazy. I you can believe me if you want to. I know what I saw. Things like that. You kind of use those terms. It's not usually pieced together very well, especially the first time you're telling it. Right now, I've told my
right.
Mothman story so many times. I just like I'm just repeating it back, and it just doesn't even feel the same way it used to. But this is the very first time he's telling the story to anybody. I did go ahead and take the liberties to look up, the term creepypasta itself wasn't utilized until 2007, which is, I mean, almost 10 years after this encounter, but that doesn't mean that internet lore and things like that didn't exist because it did at that time.
Sure.
Um, so I don't know, but he comes forward and he tells this story, and it just kind of boomed from there, and it just kind of has continued to grow with other alleged encounters. Brian himself then goes on. I don't think it was in the same post. I think it was later on down the line. It had to have been. He goes on to relay the story of another woman, of some woman in Portland, Oregon, who allegedly in 2004 had what she thought was maybe like a maintenance man or something knock on her door, and she answers it, and it's like a 16 to 18-year-old kid, like teenager, with the same black eyes, and she closed the door on him, and that was the end of it. um I don't know who this woman is. I don't think she's ever like publicly come out and said, yes, I was the Portland, Oregon woman,
Right.
and told her story. At least if she has, I've never found it anywhere. I mean, anybody could be. I could be, right. I could go on anywhere and be like, that was me. you know but
Wait, that was you?
it was me. Yeah, that
Holy
was
shit.
it was me. I lived in Portland, Oregon in 2004, and this teenager knocked on my door. That's what I told you. They were known as the children, and he came and knocked on my door, and I fucked him up. you know
You fucked him up. I kicked him square in the balls. I'm not ashamed of it.
Oh, come knocking on my door. I don't know you.
Right? I don't fucking know you, dude. You shouldn't be knocking my like. Look, if you knock on my door, you should expect to get kicked in the balls. That's all I'm
Hey,
saying. I
exactly.
don't know you.
Fucking balls to throat. That's what it is. Um, just a warning for anybody. Um, But I think that probably one of the most interesting encounters, alleged encounters that I came across, which again are people that I can't really identify. They have different names depending on what story you're reading, which is a red flag. But
Right.
it was a Vermont couple, and this one apparently happened in 2016, is the closest I'm finding. They lived in rural Vermont, and about 2 a.m., a boy and a girl come knocking on their door, and they let them in, and everything was all right. But then the husband of this couple starts feeling not good, like physically ill, and the kid, they're trying to like ask the kids questions, but because he starts feeling terribly, they're not really getting through to him. The kids kind of mention that their parents are going to be there to pick him up. They don't really understand what's going on, as far as I know. Well, the husband ends up like getting a nosebleed, and then they have a power outage. And when the power outage happens, the two kids are like, "Oh, our parents are here. We gotta go." And they get into the car. They get into this black car with two people say men in black even, and they drive off and into the night and fuck off. And
Right.
then this is also followed with stories of the couple like having their downfall. Basically, the husband gets dies of cancer, and all of their cats die, and it's all this terrible shit happens to them. But again, I can't verify their identities, so.
No, nobody can. This was, as far as I can tell, again, I traced this back as early as I could. And this appears to have been a 2016 email submission to Week in Weird. And so that is the website run by Greg and Dana Newkirk. And I it was published there first, and according to their article about it, they were contacted by email, by
Mhm.
this person. So their identity is never named, and there are scant details of of this sighting to lend it any real credibility. And of course the whole thing. Um, it's fucking bananas. Like, they let these kids inside, the lights go out. That's my favorite part of the story.
Right.
Like, the power goes out, and then they like find the kids standing in the hallway outside of the bathroom and decide that like no normal children would just stand there like that after the lights had accidentally gone out. Um and that's like, you don't know these fucking kids. I
Right.
don't, I'm just, they could react however they want.
I was a
Let them
weird
feel
kid.
their feelings.
I'd do
When
that.
Yeah. And yeah, and then you're right. Like, they kept saying, "Oh, our parents are gonna come get us. It won't be long now." And then yes, and apparently two men in black show up and pick him up, and that's it. And then the husband is diagnosed, well, after his nosebleed during the actual like encounter, and then later on though is when he's supposed to have been diagnosed with like some kind of aggressive skin cancer, I guess.
Oh, Jesus.
And people speculate that there was some kind of radiation poisoning. So I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but like this is one of the hypotheses about what the black eyed children might be, right? That they could be some kind of alien or alien human hybrid or something, and that this couple was exposed, specifically the man somehow like just got lucky, I guess, and was exposed to dangerous levels of radiation, which is how he got the nosebleed, maybe even caused the power outage, and gave him skin cancer, I guess.
And killed all the cats, apparently,
And
too.
yes, yeah, one of their cats died, and the other one just went missing.
It's like, I'm getting out of here.
Right,
For
right.
this.
I mean, what would you do?
It's fair.
You're like,
That's
these
fair.
fucking creepy kids come, Men in Black pick them up. Now everybody's dying and getting cancer and shit.
Oh, I already
Like,
said what I do. I fuck them up. That's
well, I mean, a cat can't kick anybody in the balls.
that's
It
true.
just has to run.
That's fair. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I don't, and all of the other reports, and I feel like these ones are only like, so the Brian one I think is popular because it's the first.
yeah,
And then the Portland, Oregon one is popular because Brian told it.
Right.
And then this one is popular because it's the new Kirks who have a pretty decent platform. Um, every other story, at least I don't know, maybe you have more that I didn't really, get into. Every other one though seems to be just social media fodder, or something on Reddit, something on 4chan,
That has
so,
been my experience. Yes.
right, something on YouTube. You got all these people that say I've seen one.
Do
Um,
you though? Do you have
right.
all these people?
Well, yes, they do. They do say that. People say it all the time. They're like, "I've seen it. I've seen it." And I don't know them. I've never talked to these people, but they say that they've seen them. But you have like a variance of stories now. For whatever reason, they're like the trope to the black-eyed kids is that like they come knock on your door, and if you let them in, something bad happens. And I don't know. I don't even understand where that comes from because like the Brian Bethel story, he was out and about. I mean, I guess
Well,
he included the door
he was in his
knocking.
car and they were asking, like, well, okay, so he's outside because he has to fucking write a check to his internet provider. And he parked closer to the marquee of the theater showing Mortal Kombat, which is a great
That's
detail.
I mean,
You
that's
know,
cool. Yeah.
kudos to him for including that for whatever reason. And and so he's using the light from the marquee so he could see his checkbook because it's nighttime. And the kids come over and they're asking him, like, they knock on the window and then they're asking him, like, hey, can you give us a ride to our house? We got to get money to go see Mortal Kombat.
Okay.
And they're like, let us in, you got to let us in. And then they get more insistent. And then he like finally notices that they have black eyes because he sees that like it's already halfway through the final showing of Mortal Kombat. So this all must be a clever ruse to get into his car, I guess. And then they start yelling at him to let him in. Actually, only one of them ever speaks. There's one he described as having olive skin with like medium length brown hair, and then like a fucking ginger kid. And so he's like, I don't think those kids were related. He literally says that. Like, so like, yes, excellent deduction. But it anyway. And how does he fucking know? By the way,
Right.
could have been a modern family. Maybe they were adopted. Maybe they're foster kids. You know, you don't have to be blood to be family. Bethel,
Let me guess,
but
the ginger kid is the one that didn't talk.
correct.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, fucking gingers. And no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but yeah, so like that's where that started. It started at like with the OG story. Like you can't let them in because they really want to get in. And if there's one thing I have learned about children is you could never fucking give them what they want ever.
That's true.
Just not ever. Don't do it.
Yeah, have child can confirm. Never pleased. But so I guess maybe invading your personal space is kind of more the trope, and
I
people
guess.
just mistake that for your house because that's where you're comfortable. I don't know. I do know that these are popular stories in the UK, um, and the Appalachians.
Huh.
So one of the tropes that is kind of tied to it, but I can't backdate it. I can't predate it before Brian's story. I can't find anything before his story.
Right.
But that these kids were coal mine workers. They're ghosts of coal mine workers, basically, that died in the mines, and that's why they show up. I mean, they're just haunted kids seeking help. And then they usually tend to like disappear. They don't really stay. So, like, you might answer your door, they might come in, and then they walk past you, and then they're gone. So it's like more like a ghost, which is interesting. But like I said, I can't really find anything specific. I don't know where people are getting 1950s. One article even claimed that this was part of Native American folklore. And I couldn't find that either. um,
Interesting.
which
Yeah,
is
I think.
very frustrating.
Well, of course it is. Yeah, that's super frustrating. I mean, it could be, that we were once again witnessing folklore in action, where people were captivated by that original account from Bethel, and it spread and it
Yeah.
continues to spread. And so every region, every culture really that gets their hands on it, they make it their own. So yeah, I
Right.
mean, I guess it makes sense in Appalachia. It would be related to coal mines. You know,
Mhm.
like obviously that industry is hugely influential to the culture there.
Right.
You know, like of course it would have to tie in with that somehow.
Yeah.
Um,
Paranormal encounters in the UK are a hot topic. So having them be some type of ghost in that over there makes a lot of sense because most things are.
yeah, right.
No, I agree. It definitely, it can change depending on what your cultural beliefs are, at that time period. But I did something interesting. I think I'm gonna try to start doing it. The more we do the show, I asked social media, what do you guys think about the Black Eyed Kids?
Sure.
And even like that picture that I posted, like it's clearly a still from some movie or show or something.
It's
I
from
don't know what
Children of
it's
the
from.
Dam, or I'm sorry, it's from Village of the
Is
Damned.
it? I couldn't even find out where that was from.
Village of, like the movie Village of the Damned.
Yeah, like I took that.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I, I used my Google Lens and I tried to look it up and it didn't come up. It just all came up. That same picture is under every single article ever written about black eyed children.
It's because nobody remembers classic sci-fi, but they all remember Black Eyed Children.
Yeah, I've never seen that one. Maybe I will now.
Yeah,
Um,
check it out.
well, because that's important. When did that movie come out?
The original Village of the Damned, like the
Right.
50s.
So maybe that's where people are pulling the 1950s date. I mean,
Well, the thing about it is that that photograph or that image, it looks like it was doctored to
mhm.
fill their eyes in because the kids in the movie don't have black eyes.
Oh,
They
they
just
don't
look
have black
like,
eyes.
yeah, they're just normal creepy kids.
That's why I can't
So I
find
think it
it.
was
That makes
photoshopped.
sense.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. Well, because I was wondering, because if they were filled in, that would be interesting, right? Then it shows, but again,
right.
no history predating 1996.
Yeah, I mean,
But I
well,
asked people,
oh, go
what
ahead.
do you guys think?
Mhm.
And everybody's like scared of them. They're like, they're like treating it like the Hat Man. It's the one thing you don't want to run into. And I don't really find any justification as to why not, because it's
I'm
cool.
pretty sure I could take a kid.
Right. I mean, I'm not afraid of no children, especially no ghost children. Like I said, I've already talked to. I'm challenging the black eyed kids to come knock on my fucking door. I dare you.
That's right.
Stop me in front of Mortal Kombat. I fucking dare you.
Honestly, if I was there, I don't have to worry about it. I'm already inside watching Mortal Kombat.
Right.
So,
Right. No, you can't come in here. I'd probably invite them. Like, yeah, let's watch Mortal Kombat together. Um, no,
yeah,
I
right.
wouldn't. You can't do that. You can't do that with kids that you don't know. Like, it doesn't. It's creepy.
Oh,
You're the
yeah, you don't
creeper.
invite strange children places. I feel like I
Yeah.
shouldn't have to say that, but
Right. You're the
here
fucking
we
threat.
are. Yeah. No, I found and I as soon as you brought this up as a topic, like I was reminded of this right away. There was another story going around the internet, and you've probably seen this, that supposedly took place in 1974 in northern France about an encounter with black eyed children. And I, for the fucking life of me, cannot source this story to anything older than like 2016.
Okay.
You know, but it's supposed to have taken place in 1974, again in northern France, and this guy was supposedly motorcycling in the afternoon through some unnamed village, and he noticed some children loitering outside of a building, and there was like, there were several of them, and they seemed to be touching the side of the building with both hands. And let's see, then hold on, let me take a look at this. I'm actually just going to read part of this instead of trying to
Sure.
paraphrase it. So okay, here we go. There were 5 of them standing in the courtyard of the house. 3 were standing in the background and seemed to be touching the sides of the building with both hands. The others were standing, staring at the car. They were about 4 feet tall and were all dressed in long oilcloth garments covered in multicolored spots, and they had long waist length hair. Their skin was a yellowy color. Oh, I guess so. They were driving a car. I don't know why I thought they were on a motorcycle. Whatever. A car is kind of just like two motorcycles next to each other.
Yeah, it is.
So, whatever. And nobody fucking correct me. So it's whatever. That's what cars are. They're just two motorcycles. Anyway, so the person in the passenger seat uh, decides to roll down their window. But as soon as he does, his blood runs cold when faced with the child standing in front of him. Yes, because the children seem to have compressed noses and eyes that were like black billiard balls.
Mm.
Yeah, and so the child nearest to the car decided to raise their arm and gesture as if to say, "Come here." At that point, the men panicked, put the car in reverse, and got the fuck out of there. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I would, if somebody knows where like the original source for this is, if it isn't from like 2016, if it's from some like obscure UFO book from the 70s or 80s or something, I would love to hear about it, because I have not been able to find an earlier source for the story than this blog from like 2016, and then it was shared on Reddit, of course, like a year ago. Um, but yeah, if this did come out before Bethel's story, I would imagine that it was sort of categorized as a UFO thing, and not a black eyed kid thing or a supernatural thing,
Sure.
just based on the children's description, because that is one of the hypotheses, right? Is that they're human alien hybrids, because uh, things having weird all black eyes is not original to black eyed kids, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
grays were around way longer than that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Well, yeah, where's their skin yellow? That's weird. They're
I don't
jaundiced.
know. Maybe. I think the person who wrote this is just racist. So they needed to point out their skin color for some reason. They're like,
Could
"Oh,
be.
this is France, and you're not pale white. Something's wrong."
You're yellow? Yeah, so this is an issue. Could be. Could be. Um, well, let's kind of talk about, let's say for us, because I'll be honest with you guys, I'm very surprised about all this. I thought for sure that I was gonna like research this topic and I was gonna find something to it, and this has been going on for a long time. I didn't expect this to be something bred from the fucking 90s. Like I really didn't. I didn't expect there to be so little. Because the way, like I said, asking you guys what you think, the way people talk about this topic, it's like everybody's so knowledgeable about it, and it's like something everybody knows, and I just don't. And that doesn't really seem to be the case. Um, but let's theorize, okay? Let's pretend that all of these stories are 100% real. What could they be? Um, Tobias, you were talking about aliens. I think that seems to be like popular, not the most popular, I think, but I think that's a pretty popular theory. Is that these are some type of alien or alien human hybrid or something of that nature. What do you think about that take on it?
Well, I think that it is reflected in stories like like that couple, of
Hmm.
course, where they describe the quote unquote parents picking them up as two men in business suits, so very
Yeah.
very men in black esque, right? So I don't think I've ever seen any sort of craft or anomalous lights or anything like that mentioned. I've never heard of black eyed children being mentioned during like an abduction experience or
Hmm.
anything similar. I've never heard of anything like a contactee case involving black eyed children, and so that's kind of unusual. I would think that, like, well, one, if there was something to it, and there was something to these other stories of like aliens and stuff, you would think that you would hear more, more stories with black eyed kids in them from the UFO sphere, right? Like you'd hear more of those coming out of
Hmm.
ufology. And so like that's unusual. And even if it is like, even if it's all made up, you would still expect um, for people to embellish the stories in a way that would incorporate more UFO lore, right? So why aren't we seeing more like Black Eyed Kids stories where they come out of a flying fucking saucer or something? You know, like
Right.
that you would expect that to happen. You know, like that ought to be happening, but it's not. So I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, and it'd be so easy, right? To add to your story. I was abducted, and there were like these grays, but then there were also these like children, these like human-looking children, but their eyes were all black. I
Right.
swear to God, if I get a report like that, I'm going to be upset after the show. I'm like, you stole my fucking story. That was mine.
Right.
And except mine ends with, and then I kicked them all in the balls and left. Um,
Yes.
but
Square in the junk.
right. It works every time. Everybody's got a weak spot. That's it.
Yeah. Fuck the kids. Only the black eyed ones. Or
only the black
not
eyed
even
ones.
them, actually. Shit. I take it all back.
So, I agree. Of course, the number one I feel is some type of supernatural demonic entity, right? Some of these stories, the kids don't start off with black eyes. They end up having black eyes later on, like the eyes change to black, at least in some of the ones that I had read. Um, which seems to be more of, they believe that they're maybe regular children and that they're possessed, or something demonic parading as a child. They kind of remind me of vampires. I'll be honest with you.
That's something that's been floated before.
Is that they're vampires?
Yeah, well, because the classic vampire lore, of course, being that they have to be invited into a space before they can enter it.
True. That's
Yeah,
well, and that's what it reminds me of. So it's not like pieces of this haven't been seen around, humanity since we've had humanity.
yeah, sure.
Just that the specifics of it didn't really come together until, to me, 1996. And I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Please find me older accounts that aren't just living on the internet somewhere. Like, give me something here, to work with, because I am kind of disappointed that this is, probably all bullshit. You know what I mean? I really
Oh,
am.
I hear you.
I was excited to talk about this. I was excited to deep dive it, and sometimes it's not that great. Here's the other thing, though, and this is something that I don't feel like people really look into. So something happens to people, to certain people. I kind of thought about this when just kind of researching like the black eyes. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Because a lot of them are just like they had black eyes. They don't really specify that it's the whites and everything. Like they just say
Mhm.
black eyes. So I'm like, okay, is it the iris is black, right? They just have big pupils that cover whatever color they might be. Um, there are certain circumstances where regular humans tend to have quote unquote black eyes. It happens a lot during psychotic episodes. That's actually a tall tale sign of somebody suffering from a very severe psychotic episode is that their eyes turn black. It happens with, domestic abuse victims will say that a lot. I was with my abuser, and I would do something, and then their eyes would just go black because because the pupils will dilate because of the adrenaline that's happening at that time. Um, so could it just be that? Could it be that people are encountering these kids that have some type of psychosis or under the influence of drugs, even? And then the pupils dilate wildly and it looks scary. And the circumstances are weird to begin with because it's a kid showing up at your doorstep or approaching your car or whatever. I don't see why not. I don't see why we can't have some of those stories at least be that type of situation,
Sure, that
you know?
makes as much sense as anything.
I mean, even the Portland, Oregon woman, she said it looked like a teenager, but like it could have been a young man fucked up on drugs or again having a psychotic break, homeless. He just looks weird and he
Was
knocks on the
nobody else
door.
doing drugs as a teenager?
I don't think so.
Anybody?
I don't
Is
think
that
so.
just me?
Me too, but I guess just us weirdos.
I guess.
It
Well, because like
happens.
LSD will make your
Yeah.
that'll make your pupils dilated.
While you're on LSD, you should look at the person that you're with who's also on LSD. It'll freak you out.
Yeah, don't. I'm
Because
not
their eyes
gonna.
look fucking weird, you know?
Yeah. And don't look in a mirror either. That's
No,
always a
no,
mistake.
don't do it. It's a bad idea. It's not you. It's never you. Don't trust it.
Right.
Um, so I mean, there is, potentially a logical explanation for this somewhere. Um, and I just thought it would be irresponsible if I didn't bring that up. So I don't
No, that's
know,
great. I'm glad you did. Good point.
but the fucking $1,000,000 question here. This is so important. So
Yeah.
important. And everybody overlooks it. Where the fuck are these kids' parents?
They're Men in Black.
That's true. They're
They
busy.
live in flying saucers or under or like bases that we know don't exist under Dulce, New Mexico.
So so they come the men back come here, right? The fucking babysitter called off today.
Yeah, right. Men in Black are so mad.
Then bring their fucking kids. They're like,
They
listen.
did drive all the way from Mount Shasta or some shit just to pick these fucking kids up.
They're like, look, I gotta go interview this person. You stay here in the car. And then the
Right?
kid sees the fucking marquee. It's Mortal Kombat. They're not missing out.
Yeah, right. Guys just like, look, I bust my ass all day pretending not to know how pens work and saying cryptic shit to weirdos. And what do I get at the end of the day? I get to pick up your stupid ass? No, thank you. So
And
much trouble.
maybe that's why there's not that many reports that seem credible. Maybe they were intimidated by the parents of these children and they're afraid to come forward.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. People don't often report adults with black eyes. That doesn't really happen. It tends to just be kids. And that part I do find interesting. Um, Maybe it's because all those stories are made up and they're, catering to the lore that's already established. I don't know.
Sure.
But we're not seeing a lot of reports of adults with black eyes.
I've never seen one. That doesn't mean they don't exist, but
Sure.
I personally have never seen one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it there. Yeah, I think that's as likely as anything. You know, the reason for that being that people are sort of coloring it within the lines here and don't
Mhm.
want to break from like established lore too much when they're spreading their personal variation of it. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that makes perfect sense. Of course, the supernatural explanation has to be that they're demons or something similar. And
Sure.
as we all know from horror movies, like the one thing, if you are a super evil spiritual entity that you should try to appear as to throw people off and catch them off guard is a kid.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Well, you can't go after like an adult Christian because God or whatever. I don't
well, I'm
know.
just saying, like, if somebody sees like a black-eyed adult, they're probably
Yeah.
just getting shot, like, but like a black-eyed kid, people will entertain them first, and you're much less likely to
Can't
to
just shoot
react
kids.
in the ways that you would if it was a grown-up or something. So they can catch you off guard that way.
You ever seen Cooties?
Cooties. I think
Yeah.
so. Why does that sound so familiar?
It's like I don't know, something happens to chicken nuggets and kids
Yes, with the
eat them
kids and
and
they all turn into zombies.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. Those chicken nuggets were fucking gross. And I
Yeah.
don't know how that kid didn't notice that like green slime was
Right.
coming out of their chicken nugget. Like they bit into a pus pocket or something.
It's so gross. It's
Yeah.
it's a fun little movie. It's not great, but it's fun.
It was I was surprised because I saw it probably like a year ago. And I don't like at that time, I didn't know how the fuck I didn't know it already existed.
Yeah.
Because like it had like real actors I had heard of in it.
Yeah.
It had some kind of production value. And given I've heard of a lot of like, B horror actors, but like these were people that normal people would have heard of, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, had some big names in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, check that one out if you guys haven't. Anyway, you get to kill kids in that one because they're zombies. Fuck them kids.
Well, yeah, what are you supposed to do? Not kill the kids, become a zombie?
Right. Yeah. No, fuck that. I kick them right in the balls. Square in the balls.
Right.
Every time. Um, it gives a new meaning to double tap, right? That's Zombieland, but still. Uh,
I see what you did there.
I got jokes tonight. I'm in a jovial mood, I guess.
You're on fire.
I got to do something. Like I said, I'm depressed. I'm depressed that there's not more to this. It's hurt my feelings, and
Well,
I hate that. And I just, maybe someone out there can change my mind. Maybe you can. But that where I'm at with this, I think this is fake, guys. I think this is made up. I think it's not real, and I think you're all falling for it. Joke's on you and me before today, but that's my opinion. Spice, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely lean that way. I don't want to. This is like I said before. This is one that's been on my radar for a long, long time, and I've always kind of kept my eyes peeled for any real credible stories.
Yeah.
Um, there are so many examples of like credible witnesses who have come forward about stuff at least this fucking weird, if not weirder.
Oh yeah, totally.
We know who the like fucking Flatwoods monster witnesses are. Like, we
Yeah.
know who the Kelly Hopkinsville goblin witnesses are.
Right.
I have shit at this point. I don't know, somewhere between like 5 and 10. I'd have to go count people who have been willing to go on the record about seeing fucking Mothman and have their name in print. Shit,
Right.
some of them have agreed to be like filmed in television projects and shit with me. Like, like there's no way anybody can say that like I made those people up. Like, they fucking exist. They
Right.
obviously exist. Anybody can see that they exist. You know what I mean? But that's not something that I have been able to find with the Black Eyed Kid stories, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it is a bummer. I think it's I think it's interesting because it's a story that started on it might be the first example of a paranormal bit of folklore that started on the internet and
Hmm.
was primarily spread through the internet, using the internet as a medium. Like, it started through that email chain and has spread primarily through the internet since. And to this day, that's where you find most of the stories. It's not like people are coming up to me at fucking cons and stuff going, "Hey, I got to tell you about my black eyed kid story."
Yeah.
Like, that shit never fucking happens.
Yeah.
So,
I wish it did,
yeah, I would love that. That'd be great.
but it doesn't. And sometimes that's what it is. It's a fun story. Again, it had me sold for a very long time. I figured, well, people don't just make this shit up, right? Well, they do sometimes. It does happen. But I think we're going to continue to see these reports. Now, again, that it doesn't mean that like this has never happened. It doesn't mean I'm right. I've been wrong a lot in my life. you know,
Sure.
um, it doesn't mean that we won't then see fucking. Some people believe in like thought forms and egregores and what else are they called, tulpas, and
Right.
and maybe that's a thing, maybe that happens, and maybe that's why there's an uptick in sightings, and it has nothing to do with the fact, and it's growing in popularity. It could be.
You never know. Like, if you
Right.
subscribe to the ultra terrestrial hypothesis or
Mhm.
something, then um, you would expect that phenomenon to cater to
Right.
our expectations. And so at some point it would start looking, at least in some cases, like black eyed
Mhm.
children, right? But fundamentally, what is important? And I think this is what we I at the risk of speaking for both of us, what we want to convey to people, or at least what I want to convey to people, but I think that you're gonna end up getting on board with this, is that you can't prove a negative.
Yeah,
And
you can't.
so at no point, I think, can we comfortably say that black eyed children for sure don't exist. You can't
Yeah.
fucking prove that. You can't prove a negative.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
but right now, with the current evidence that we have, um, that level of evidence is not compelling enough to say that they do exist.
Yeah.
So here we are,
Yeah, it's not looking too hot for the black-eyed children, and if they do exist, I'll fuck them up. So
right in the balls.
just keep that in
I will
mind.
pick up a kid and use that kid to beat another kid if I have to.
Yeah, if that's what you gotta do,
Yeah. So watch out.
They're not people, right? They got black eyes. They're not one of us.
We're treading into some dark territory
We
here.
are. Yeah, I was gonna say we shouldn't discriminate. Maybe they're nice people. Maybe they're
They
good
could.
kids.
Hey, if they're fucking chill, they can come over. We'll watch some movies. I'll make some popcorn. It'll be great.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
mean, it just depends on what the vibe is like. Check it out, I
That's true.
mean,
Talk to their parents first, I guess. See, it's just you
yes.
get when it comes to kids, you just can't be too careful
If a
because you don't
child,
wanna be weird.
with black eyes or not, ever approaches you and there's no adult, the first thing you do is ask where their parents are.
Correct.
And you don't fucking stop until they answer that question, or at least kind of answer why they're not with them.
Right.
That's
That
it.
should be your number one concern. Like, why is this child by themselves?
Yeah.
How can I help them get back to their people?
And even with their black eyes, you'd be like, what the fuck? Where's your parents? Your eyes are all fucked
Yeah.
up. You need to go to the hospital.
Right. Right. Where where did you get all that LSD, and do you have any more? This is important. Think carefully.
Let me hold it for you so you don't drop it. You don't want to lose this. I mean, that's what you do. And then write in to either myself or Tobias and let us know what happened. I'd be curious to find out. Did you get taken by the men in black or whatever? I mean, what happened? So, any final thoughts on the black-eyed kids?
Oh boy, I think we've pretty much covered it.
Yeah.
Don't be a creep to kids. If you see kids out and about, leave them alone. If they look like they need help, call the authorities.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. Okay. Well, with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.